It started like something straight out of a perfect love story. A luxury getaway to Zanzibar, crystal clear water, private villas, and a birthday celebration that quickly turned into a surprise proposal. Ashlee Janae was glowing, smiling into the camera, sharing moments that looked almost too perfect to question. Her followers watched in real time as she said yes, capturing what seemed like the beginning of a new chapter in her life. Nothing about her posts hinted at stress, fear, or emotional struggle. In fact, everything suggested the exact opposite: joy, excitement, and stability. But what makes this story unsettling is exactly that contrast. Because just days after those happy moments were shared with the world, Ashlee would be found unresponsive in her own villa. The same trip that looked like a dream from the outside had quietly begun to unravel behind closed doors. And the deeper you look into those final days, the more it feels like that perfect trip was hiding something far darker beneath the surface. While everything online painted a picture of happiness, reports from inside the resort tell a very different story. From the moment they arrived, there were signs that things weren't as smooth as they appeared. Arguments weren't just occasional, they were recurring. And according to people familiar with the situation, they were intense. The night of April 8th marked a turning point. What started as another disagreement quickly escalated into something serious enough that resort security had to step in. This wasn't just a verbal disagreement. It was disruptive enough that staff made the decision to physically separate them, placing Ashlee and her fiancé in completely different villas, about 10 minutes apart. That kind of action isn't taken lightly, especially in a luxury setting where discretion is everything. It raises a major question. What exactly happened during that argument that made trained staff feel intervention was necessary? And more importantly, if things had reached that level already, what happened after they were separated becomes even more critical. Hours after they were separated, the night took a chilling turn. Around 2 a.m., multiple people staying nearby reported hearing unusual noises coming from Ashlee's villa. These weren't ordinary sounds. Guests described them as muffled, strained, almost like someone struggling or trying to resist something. At the time, no one thought to intervene. After all, she was believed to be alone in her room. But looking back, those sounds now carry a completely different weight. The idea that something serious could have been happening in that moment, while others were just walls away, adds an eerie layer to the timeline. Not long after those sounds were heard, Ashlee was discovered unconscious inside her villa, with a belt reportedly involved. The gap between those noises and the discovery of her condition is where many questions begin to form. Because if those sounds truly indicated distress, then what exactly was happening in that room during those critical minutes? And more importantly, was she really alone? One of the most troubling parts of this entire situation isn't just what happened, but how long it took for anyone to be told. According to her family, nearly 11 hours passed before her fiancé reached out to inform them that something had happened. Even more confusing is what he initially said. Instead of immediately explaining the seriousness of the situation, he reportedly told them that Ashlee was okay and stable, that there was no need to worry. But that reassurance didn't match reality, because by the time that call was made, the situation had already escalated far beyond stable. After that initial contact, communication reportedly became inconsistent, even disappearing at times. For a family thousands of miles away, this created a nightmare scenario: uncertainty, confusion, and growing fear. In cases like this, timing is everything. And when the timeline doesn't add up, people start asking questions. Why wait 11 hours? What was happening during that time? And why didn't the information come through clearly from the beginning? Not long after her passing, authorities put forward an explanation that seemed to close the case quickly. The cause was described as suffocation leading to cerebral hypoxia, and the situation was framed in a way that suggested she had ended her own life. But almost immediately, that version of events was met with resistance, especially from her family. They strongly pushed back against the idea, insisting that it didn't align with who Ashlee was as a person. Anyone who followed her online saw someone full of energy, someone who embraced life, someone who had just celebrated a major milestone with an engagement. There were no visible warning signs, no public indications of distress that would support that conclusion. And while social media doesn't always reflect reality, the contrast here felt too extreme to ignore. This created a divide between the official explanation and public perception. Because when the story being told doesn't match the person people knew, doubt begins to grow. And in this case, that doubt spread fast. In a place like a high-end resort, surveillance isn't optional, it's standard. Cameras are typically positioned to monitor entrances, walkways, and shared spaces, which means there should be a clear record of movements throughout the property. That's why so many people immediately focused on one key question: what do the cameras show? According to statements from the family, they were expecting that footage to provide answers. Who entered Ashlee's villa? Who left? And at what time? But as of now, that footage hasn't been publicly released. What makes things even more intriguing is the growing speculation that authorities have already reviewed it, and that it may have influenced decisions being made behind the scenes. Because shortly after these discussions about surveillance began circulating, there were noticeable shifts in how the situation was being handled. And when critical evidence exists but isn't shared, it often leads to one thing: more questions than answers. As the investigation continued, a major development changed how people viewed the situation. Ashlee's fiancé, who was initially treated as a witness, had his passport confiscated, preventing him from leaving Tanzania. Officially, this doesn't make him a suspect, but it does signal that authorities see him as important to the case. At the same time, online discussions began surfacing about his past, including claims about previous relationships and alleged behavior patterns. None of these claims have been fully confirmed, but in situations like this, public speculation spreads quickly. The combination of restricted travel, unanswered questions, and unverified rumors created a shift in how the public viewed him. What started as a tragic situation began to feel like something more complex. Because when authorities take steps to keep someone in place during an investigation, it usually means one thing: they're not done asking questions. Even now, the full truth behind Ashlee Jenae's death remains unclear. The official statements, the timeline gaps, the witness accounts, and the unanswered questions all seem to point in different directions. What began as a romantic getaway ended in a way no one expected, leaving behind more confusion than closure. For her family, the focus is simple. They want answers. They want clarity on what really happened during those final hours. And for the public, the story continues to raise one central question: was this truly a tragic and isolated incident, or is there something deeper that hasn't been revealed yet? Because when every detail is placed side by side, the argument, the sounds, the delay, the missing footage, it becomes difficult to ignore the possibility that this story isn't as straightforward as it first appeared. And until every piece is fully explained, that question will remain unanswered.